Hello, this is Janet Michael. In addition to hosting The Valley Today each weekday at noon on the River 95.3, I also produce podcasts. And I'm excited to kick off Season 2 of our podcast series in partnership with Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. It's called We Are REC. Every week we'll release a new episode talking to different people from REC about a host of different topics. We'll get tips for saving money on your electric bill. We'll talk about renewable energy and the impact it can have in our communities. We'll get some behind-the-scenes info about what happens when the power goes out in a storm. Don't miss out on information about community grants, scholarships, REC-hosted events, and more. Get every single episode on our website at theriver953.com under the podcast tab, or you can subscribe for free in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or on Spotify. Just do a quick search for We Are REC. Hello and welcome to The Valley Today. I am your host, Janet Michael. It is LFCC Day on a Thursday as you're listening to the show today. We, however, have pre-recorded our conversation over Zoom on a Wednesday afternoon. Brandy is on the Zoom screen with me for our regular monthly, bi-monthly conversation for Lord Fairfax Community College. And Brandy, I'm really excited about our chat today because we're talking about a new project that you and I are working on with some of the coolest people. Thank you for letting me be a part of this podcast project.
Well, I'm certainly excited to announce that we are launching with you, of course, the first LFCC podcast. And part of that's going to be just highlighting so many amazing stories, as you said.
Well, we have been talking about doing this podcast series probably for the better part of a year now and just trying to figure out how it would work. I know that you went to a conference and a lot of what they talked about at that conference is how podcasts are a great way to tell a business's story. In your case, it's the college's story, and you really wanted to make sure that we put something together like that. But this is different than just somebody giving a testimonial per se of being a professor at the college or a student at the college. You've really thought out who the guests are going to be throughout this series.
Yeah, we have been thinking about it for probably, over a year now, and just trying to figure out which direction we wanted to go. And we definitely did not want to create a podcast that was a sales pitch of the college, just telling you what we offer and how to become a student, because we can do that in many other ways. What we ended up narrowing it down to is just really a storytelling podcast. We already capture so many amazing stories about our students and our professors and new programs and partnerships and just community relationships that we have formed in writing format. So those will be in newspaper articles or on our blog. But as many of us know, and even myself, podcasts are just so convenient. And not only the convenience, though, but really capturing the story straight from the person themselves. And sitting down with you and having a back and forth dialogue just brings out so much more than we can capture in a written format through an interview. And I think we're really going to see that shine through when we launch our first one very soon.
Well, I was waiting to tell you until we were on the air, even though technically we're not live on the air. But the first episode is up on the station's website. So if you go to theriver953.com/LFCC stories, you can hear the very first conversation. We recorded several of them last month. So we've got some in the hopper that we'll be releasing every other week, that we're going to release every other Thursday. But the conversation that I had with Sarah Downs is already live that people can go and listen to. And she was a really fun and interesting person to choose as our first inaugural episode.
I am so excited that you just announced this, and your timing is on point. I think you have magic powers you don't know about, Janet. I'm actually having dinner with Sarah tonight and in Front Royal at Tri-Tie, and so I will get to tell her this in person, and she'll be really excited. She has no clue that she'll be the first one. And I'm just thrilled that she was willing to do this. She's an outstanding individual. She's already had a bright future, and it's going to get even brighter for her. And I have not heard her interview with you. You all were in the room by yourselves doing that. So I just can't wait to hear what it sounds like.
Well, and it was fun. We spent almost the entire afternoon at the college. Of course, we were doing our social distancing and everybody was keeping their distance. Some of the conversations that we've recorded are also going to be done over Zoom. But that day, I talked to a couple of different students. I talked to 2 different professors and got to speak to a woman who was a graduate of the very first class of Lord Fairfax Community College. She is amazing. How hard has it been for you to find people for me to talk to?
That's the thing that's so great about my job and in our public relations department here is we are not short of great stories to tell, fascinating and inspiring stories to tell. And we also have a really strong alumni base, and that includes the individuals that started here 50 years ago. This year, we're celebrating LFCC's 50th anniversary. So when you and I were able to schedule that date to start recording, I just started sending emails to these individuals that I know that have been involved for years and stayed connected. And Judy Rinker was the one that you were just mentioning. And so she immediately just jumped on the opportunity to be part of this podcast. And several of the individuals you interviewed that day, the focus did revolve around, the 50th anniversary. And a lot of them have been a part of our institution since the beginning. And so this is just a great way to capture some of those stories in this format. And we plan to post those episodes on our 50th anniversary website at lfcc.edu/50. So again, we're capturing history through these podcasts as well.
And it's been great for me because I always joke with you and with Guy when he comes in the other months that I feel like I already know everything there is to know about Lord Fairfax Community College. You guys have already re-educated me on all of the things that a community college can do. And yet sitting there having these 5 different conversations that day, I learned even more that I didn't know. And I think you're right. I wouldn't have learned that if it were you trying to explain it to me. I think hearing it come from a student or a professor really does kind of sink in a little bit more and helps people to identify where and what they could be doing with their life from a community college perspective.
Absolutely. And I feel that, again, when you're listening to a conversation between you and those individuals, you're not only capturing the facts, you're capturing their emotion behind it, and you're hearing in their voice how exciting of a time that was for them, or how proud they are of themselves for overcoming, their circumstances, or how grateful they are for their family's support. You can't hear those things in written format, but when we can hear it from the individual's mouth, it goes even deeper. So we're just so excited to be launching this podcast and capturing all of our stories in this way.
And I think it's important for people to also understand and realize that when I'm sitting down to have these initial conversations with them, like I did a couple of weeks ago, they're not coming in really with any preconceived notion of, you haven't given them like a cheat sheet of here's what I want you to say, and this is what I want to make sure that you cover. They literally are coming in clean and cold, and we're just kind of riffing more or less on a conversation. So it really does get to the heart of how they feel and their passion about the school.
Absolutely. And I plan to keep it that way. And honestly, sometimes I think it throws them off a little bit when they'll email me and say, sure, I'd love to do this. Can you just let me know what she's going to ask me? And my response is always, hey, you're going to feel like you're sitting in your living room sipping a cup of coffee while you're talking to Janet. I said, she has no problem keeping a conversation going, and you won't even know you're being interviewed. So I'm not prepping them. No, they're not prepped at all. And I always love the final product. I always love the direction that our interviews go with you. So it's authentic. And that's the way that we want this podcast to be.
Let's take a quick break. Let me remind everybody, theriver953.com/LFCC stories. The plan for the podcast series is it's still populating into the different apps. So at some point, probably by the end of the week, into the weekend, you will be able to search on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify. Hopefully, you'll even be able to tell Alexa to play it for you on the smart speaker. So none of that has kind of worked its way through all of the other systems yet, but you can go and listen to the first episode at theriver953.com/LFCC stories. We did talk to Sarah Downs, and I think, Brandy, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll play a little bit of that interview, and then you and I can talk about how amazing she is, and you can give us some insight into who you hope to have on future episodes. Does that work?
Sounds great.
Brandy and I will come back and continue this conversation in just a couple of minutes.
Do you know anyone who is struggling with financial hardships because of coronavirus? Our new webinar called Coping with the Money Crunch can help. We'll talk about immediate options to consider, revising or creating a spending plan, and lots of community resources. Then we'll cover how to narrow your priorities, contact creditors, and avoid scams and risky loans. The webinar is free, and you can either join by phone or through Zoom on a smartphone, tablet, or computer. You can find out more by visiting the Northern Shenandoah Valley Financial Education Program on Facebook or calling Karen Poff at 540-635-4549. Let me show you how to make your own plan or help someone you care about get through the crisis. Call 635-4549 or visit at NSV Financial Education on Facebook today.
Welcome back to the Valley today. I am your host, Janet Michael. We are having our LFCC Day conversation with Brandy from Lord Fairfax Community College today over Zoom. We are talking about a new podcast partnership that we have formed with the college called LFCC Stories. You can find the first episode at theriver953.com under the podcast tab. And Brandy, I had a lot of fun working on at least the first couple of episodes that we've already recorded. And we touched earlier in the segment about Sarah Downs. She's our inaugural episode. What was it about Sarah that made you choose her to be part of this podcast series, much less the very first episode that we released?
Sarah, actually, she's a recent grad, and she was very active as a student in regards to student leadership, ambassador programs. She was also a work study in our office. And so I had the privilege of getting to know her and just knowing her story and the things that she has overcome and the challenges that she had in high school, but then persisted to just go after her goals. And I had the opportunity to kind of watch that happen more closely than I might with other students. And she's just inspiring. And after graduating LFCC, transferring to Shenandoah University, and she has an active blog that she keeps going right now. And so I see those posts, and she's just a natural choice. I mean, she embodies a lot of what we see in students that do not have the easy path. And she could have easily gone to a four-year college. She had the GPA. I'm sure she could have obtained the grants or financial aid that she would need to go there. But she made the choice to come to LFCC knowing that was the best fit for her. She built such great connections with faculty and staff at the college. So the networking and the connections that she's able to take with her to Shenandoah University now will sustain her as she just keeps moving forward.
And I thought it was really cool too, because while students come to Lord Fairfax Community College from all over the place. I mean, not everybody lives in Middletown that goes to the Middletown campus or the Fauquier campus or anywhere else, but she was a Warren County High School graduate. So she really is local. Can we play a couple of minutes of my conversation with her and then we'll come back and wrap up the show?
Yes, sounds fantastic.
Okay, let's do that. You are going to be a case study in inspiration, determination, perseverance. I'm really excited to have a conversation with you today so you can tell me your story.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so excited to be here because I always want an opportunity to tell my story. It's so important to do stories because that's how people learn, that's how people explore, and that's how people discover what they can be. I come from not a wealthy background at all. I come from a single mom household, and when I was growing up, my mother didn't graduate from college. My grandmother didn't graduate from college. And so with a single mom, seeing her work 2 to 3 jobs, it just really taught me that, I need to go to college. And I need to do everything I possibly can to set myself up for success. Luckily, I was about 10 years old when Obama got elected to president. And I didn't really care as much about Barack as I did about Michelle. And just seeing Michelle Obama and her story and seeing her as a strong African-American woman who was able to go to college even though she came from West Side Chicago. And so that was like a thing for me. I was like, wow, if Michelle can do it, I can do it. And plus, like, we're in the new age of technology. And so from a very young age, I got my inspiration from Michelle Obama to be like, I'm going to go to college. In 2015, I became a homeless youth. And so my junior and senior year of high school, I worked even harder because even though I didn't really have a home, and even though I was homeless according to the state, I kept thinking to myself, if I work my butt off to get to college, to get through college, then I can hopefully have a future where my children won't ever have to worry about being homeless. So I graduated from high school with a 4.2 GPA. And it was a huge feat. I had gotten a bunch of AP credits, advanced placement credits, and I was doing great. And a lot of people were like, well, you should go to a university. Go to George Mason, go to Shenandoah University, like go to a university. And that was like the standard protocol for a high achieving 4.2 GPA student. But I personally and mentally was not ready to go to a university. I had a wonderful relationship with my boyfriend, now husband, and I had wonderful family and wonderful community here in Front Royal and Middletown in the Winchester area. And I did not want to go to a university. So I made the choice to come to LFCC. And at the time, it was looked at as like, oh, why would you go to a community college? Why would you go to a community college when you're such a high-achieving student? And the question I kept asking is, why not a community college, right? LFCC is one of the most affordable options for students. I had a bunch of scholarships, and every penny of my scholarships was used towards my LFCC tuition, and I got to spend my first 2 years of college not having to put out a dime. For books, for a computer, for tuition. I didn't pay a thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I chose to come to LFCC, and LFCC is so affordable for any student, but especially for a student with scholarships. Let's say I have a $4,000 scholarship. At a university, that wouldn't go very far. Here at LFCC, $4,000 can cover your entire semester almost. And so I got extremely blessed by choosing LFCC and making that choice. And LFCC is easily one of the best communities I've been a part of. There's so many memories.
Sometimes that's the other misconception when we talk about community colleges is that people don't think about it as the college experience. But you really can have a college experience at a community college, and you had one here at LFCC.
Yeah, 100%. I was in high school, I was in everything. And so, of course, here at LFCC, I was in everything. I was a student ambassador, so I got to represent the college and the community for 2 years. I was on the speech and debate team, and I got to travel with speech and debate, which was wonderful. I got to be a part of the Human Services program, which was my degree at the time. I got a Human Services specialization. And so I was a part of the Human Services Club, and I got to do really fun things with them and a lot of things with helping our community and doing volunteer work. I worked as a work study here at LFCC, and so I got to be a work study in the advising office as well as in the marketing office. And so there's so many fun memories, and it's just the community and the relationships I made here at LFCC helped propel me in my next step after leaving LFCC.
Do you remember the first day of class when you first set foot on campus as an official student?
So what's funny is my first day of class was technically like June. I graduated on June 6th of 2017 from high school. And I started my first class on June 8th, but it wasn't in person, it was online. So it was honestly my first day that I remember being here was as a work study, because they actually start fall work studies in the summer sometimes. And so I remember just someone like randomly emailing me like, do you want to be a work study for us? And I was like, sure. So my first day on LFCC's campus was as a work study in the advising office. And I remember being so nervous because y'all, this was my first like big job. Like I had my own work email and I was so scared. I was like, oh my gosh. But the best part about that day was I just happened to show up on Employee Appreciation Day.
Nice.
Right? So like my first day at work, I was like an employee that was being appreciated. And then from there on, like the relationships with my professors were probably the best. one professor that I never actually had in class, which I should have taken a class of hers, but her name's Alphonse. We just call her Alphonse. I don't know if she's a professor or if she's gotten her doctorate yet. She was working on it. But I would just see Alphonse like rolling through the hall, and I would stop her and be like, hey, she'd be like, hey. And that's just, the professors here are wonderful. I just loved my entire experience here at LFCC.
So, Brandy, I have to tell you, meeting Sarah, and it's funny because when I came to the college to record this first podcast episode, I didn't realize that I already knew Sarah until she walked in the door. She was part of the LFCC ambassadors, and I did a presentation to them a year or two ago on how best to market themselves as college students. So it was really cool to be able to see her and realize, wait, I know her. And then to have this conversation with her. All of the people that we're going to be talking to are unique and cool in their own way. So can you give our listeners an idea of who they can expect in some of the upcoming podcast episodes?
Absolutely. We're excited to have an episode featuring one of our very well-known professors, Dr. Brent Kendrick. We also have Raymond Seelove and then Ann and Rob Simpson. So those are our professors that are featured. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Judy Rinker, who's an LFCC alumni and a past a retiree of LFCC. And then another student that we're going to be highlighting is Jose Hernandez. He is an LFCC alumni. He came as an ESL student to LFCC, and now he's a current JMU student.
So we've already recorded these. We're going to release an episode every other Thursday. So there is an episode on that has been released right now this Thursday. So in 2 weeks, there'll be another one. And then in 2 weeks, there'll be another one, always on Thursdays. You can find the current episode at theriver953.com/LFCC stories. But the goal is to get people to find it in their podcast apps on their phone and subscribe, so they just get delivered to their phone every single time a new episode is released. That's kind of our goal, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to have everyone subscribe to our podcast and listen every other Thursday and look forward to those stories.
Well, we're going to wrap up today. And Brandy, thank you. I am so excited that you picked me to do this podcast partnership with you. I am so very excited about it.
We're looking forward to it. And we've got so many great stories to tell, and you're a great interviewer. So we know it'll be very successful.
I will have a brand new episode of The Valley Today ready to go for you tomorrow, just a few minutes after noon. Meet me back here then.